You're listening to the Markeith Braden Podcast, a podcast dedicated to helping emerging entrepreneurs create a profitable life and business they love. And now your host, professional keynote speaker, digital marketing strategist, and master lifestyle coach, Markeith Braden.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Markeith Braden Podcast. I'm here at Molette Investment Services, and I'm here with the founder and CEO of the investment group, Lee Molette. Lee, how you doing today?
I'm great, thanks. Good to see you.
Good. I appreciate you being a part of the podcast today. This is your second time around.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and Lee just informed me that this is actually Small Business Week, and so we're going to talk a little bit about small business. We're going to talk about how Lee grew his company and some things that he's doing, and then also just to get some insight on how you can begin to establish yourself as an entrepreneur, small business, because we know this podcast is for emerging entrepreneurs, those who have an interest in starting a business but not really sure what to do. And so I always want to bring to you guests who have been successful in starting their own business, successful in growing and scaling their business. And so none other than Lee Molette is going to kind of talk to us about what he has done and how he is progressing and growing and scaling here in Nashville, Tennessee. So Lee, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, Markeith, I am a native of Detroit, Michigan. So I grew up in Detroit, but I haven't lived there since I left high school for college. So I graduated high school, moved to North Carolina.
Right.
First started off at North Carolina A&T, graduated from North Carolina Central. I was working my way through school, so you got to kind of have to move where the jobs are.
Right.
And then also I was able to get in-state tuition at Central, so they helped out a lot. Graduated from North Carolina Central in 1991. So it's been a minute.
Still in high school.
And then I moved to Nashville. I started off in Nashville with an old company here, a Southwestern company, and I sold books with that company when I was in college. So that was one of the ways I helped pay my way through school. So I sold door to door. So somebody's parents might have slammed the door on me back in either Gary, Indiana, or Savannah, or just any of the other cities I worked in. But then when I graduated, I became a sales manager. Stayed there for 2 years, and then I left and really started following my passion. So the great thing about Southwestern, I really learned how to sell. And I think that's something we all need to know how to do, is to sell, because we're always selling ourselves, whether it's at work, if you're trying to holler at a girl, whatever it is, or it's a girl trying to holler at a guy, whatever. You're always trying to sell yourself. And so I learned that at Southwestern Company. I also learned just a work ethic, and Southwestern, that process is a straight commission scenario. So it's not, even in college, so it wasn't a guaranteed paycheck at the end of the week. You learn quickly and early that if you want to eat, you got to go kill something.
That's right.
And so that's what we did. And so I got a really good foundation there. But then it was time to make a change. I traveled a lot with the company, and my life was settling in, so I needed to do something different. And I really got into something I was passionate about, and that was financial services. Started off with Edward Jones, and I actually opened their first metro office in Nashville, the first Metro Nashville office. It's over on Clarksville Highway. And I know when they looked at the demographics, it was like, why would she open an office there? Well, I understood that it really doesn't matter where your office is. It's where you are and how you network and how you build a business and how you sell. But what was important to me was to have a major company like Edward Jones in a predominantly African American community, and then also for me, part of my mission was to help get this kind of underserved demographic of people into the financial services world, and so that they can understand how they can go to sleep, and because they own stock in AT&T, they're still making money.
Right.
And so that was my primary goal, to really try to get people to understand how to build wealth, how to save, why it was important, and then start leaving legacies and start building generational wealth for their families.
So what I hear you saying is that you really took the approach of getting some level of experience in someone else's company.
Yes.
Before you actually launched out to do your own. How important is it to maybe take that route and learning from someone who's already doing that and what you want to do before you kind of step out and do your own thing?
I think it's very important. So I have this philosophy. I think we're all going to pay tuition. Now, sometimes you get a scholarship, sometimes you're going to come out of pocket.
Right.
And I think that working with a company that is doing what you want to do is getting the scholarship. You have an opportunity to make money while you're learning. You get to learn the intricacies of what the industry is about. You get to ask questions. You get to see some things that you wouldn't normally see. You get to understand and learn processes versus just going out on your own. I mean, and there are people that go out on their own. They're, kind of the pioneers. But the mistakes that they make, well, that's paying the tuition. I mean, that's like really coming out of pocket. You're losing money, you're losing time. Some people are filing bankruptcy, whatever. You borrowed money, you've got investors' money, and you're putting all that at risk because you simply don't have the knowledge of what it takes to run that business. And so for me, I started with Jones. I got licensed in '94, and I worked through most of '95. So I left in October of '95, and went independent and started my own firm. And so since 1995, October 1995, I've been independent. And with the same, I use a broker-dealer, which is a company that helps me process my back office, do all my back office administration. So I contract with them. I've been with them since I left Edward Jones in 1995.
So what did it take to get started? 1995 is 2018 now. One of the things that I like about now is the low barrier to entry for businesses today, to some degree. If you're leveraging technology and you're building a community, what would you say to that person who wants to start a business? They really don't have any capital, any money, any savings. What should they be doing before they say, okay, I'm going to start this business? Do they need to go get a loan, or would you recommend now, kind of bootstrapping it to the best of your ability versus getting in debt to start a business?
Well, I think every business, and not just every business, but any endeavor that we take on, there's going to be a process that we need to follow to be successful in it. I think that far too often, our companies, especially African American companies, start off undercapitalized, and a large part of that is we don't have any money. When I say that, I'm not saying necessarily to be funny or to be negative, but we don't have generational money. So we don't have grandparents or great grandparents or a trust. Not that all white people do either. Believe me, most of them don't either. but we have even less. And we have, although historically we've owned our own companies, it's kind of the generation. We've come through some generations where we haven't owned companies, and so we don't know what it takes to really run a business. So I say that to say that part of the process I think that we need to really take a look at is making those sacrifices that it takes for us to really build strong businesses and solid businesses from day one. And that does mean that we may need to really start saving and investing before we start our companies. Because the worst thing that you could do is get started, you're in business a year, and then you got to go find a job. And it takes much longer than a year, as you know, as we kind of just talked about, to really get your business up and running, and you're paying your bills, and then you have a little bit of money left aside to take a trip, because running your own business can be stressful. You need to decompress. But just what I see far too often is that people won't follow that process. They're impatient, and they're starting too soon. And some would say good steps. Your steps are ordered by the Lord. Well, I would say some people are skipping the steps that the Lord ordered, and they're just like they're kind of running through it. Like no, I have this, and then they find themselves a year out. Man, I couldn't make it. And they want to, a lot of times want to blame people, but they never really sat down and put together a business plan. They never looked at put together a budget, never really understood what it took to really run a company. It always takes more than what you think. Always takes more than what you think. And so if you're not putting the time and the resources into planning your business up front, and it does take a sacrifice. I mean, it may mean that you have to bring your lunch. So my granddad, that was a good transition without me thinking about it. My granddad, so my family, I come from a family of entrepreneurs on both sides of my family, my mother's side and my father's side. But my granddad, who I knew very well, he grew up in Alabama, went to Tuskegee for 2 years now. He passed away in the 90s, and he was 96. So that lets you know how right
how much he saw, how much he lived through, right?
Exactly. But he moved to Detroit like so many others did, and started working in the automobile industry. He worked at Ford Motor Company. He liked Ford Motor Company. I remember just talking to Daddy Dear, which is what we called him, and he said, "Yeah, I like Ford." He said because that was the first company that paid you for your work, an honest day's work, honest day's pay for an honest day's work. Didn't matter what you looked like, didn't matter where you came from, didn't matter if you could read or write. I need you to put this door on, and for that, whoever you are, you're going to get X amount of dollars for it. So he enjoyed that part of it. He liked that part, because growing up in Alabama, it wasn't always like that. Unfortunately, it's not even like that always now. But that was kind of the deal. But he started carrying his lunch to work back then, and he saved everything he could, because he and my grandmother, their goal was to open up a pool hall. Okay. And he wanted to open up his own pool hall. He liked to shoot pools, so one day I want to own my own pool hall. And he wanted to own some other companies and businesses. But he saved. My grandmother's a miser, so she was really good at helping him save. And lo and behold, he opened up his pool hall. He took leave from work, and he said his supervisor told him, "Frank, you won't be back. I already know it. I can see it in your eye. You're gonna go try this. You're gonna be successful, and you're gonna win." But keep in mind, this was a man that had 2 years of college, and he knew he needed to set his plan together, and that's what he did. He had to, part of his strategy, because back then it was difficult for people of color to buy real estate, especially commercial real estate. And the guy that he was buying from was a white guy, and he didn't want to sell the property to him, and so he had to get another white guy to buy it for him. But he already knew this, so he had the strategy in place. So he did the equivalent of what was signing the sales contract at closing that we do now in real estate. He got this guy to put the offer in, and the guy sold it to him, and then my grandfather showed up for closing. He closed the deal, and was back at the pool hall, and the guy brought his daughter in, and the guy that he bought the building from brought his daughter in and was talking, and he said, "Hey, I'd appreciate it if you would not have your daughter running around with all these men here, because it's not a good environment for her to be in. And these guys are, he's grown men, and you got a little girl. It's not a good environment." "Oh, well, no, I just going to bring it." "No, I prefer that you not do that." And the guy says, well, let me talk to the guy I sold it to, and maybe he'd have a different take. He said, "Well, the guy you sold it to is me." And I say, "Take her out of here. Wow. You keep her up front." And he said, you're welcome to play. She needs to stay up front.
That's good. That's a good story. And you mentioned strategy in that. And a lot of times we launch without a plan.
Yes.
We launch without a strategy. We have the vision, we have the tenacity,
right?
But we don't have the plan.
We don't have the plan.
Why is the business plan? And it doesn't have to be a 20-pager, but why is the business plan important for the beginning entrepreneur?
I think I equate it to an airline pilot. He's got a vision. He knows what California looks like. But how's he going to get there? What's the route he's going to take? What's all the pre-check stuff that he needs to do? He's got to check engines and all these different things. And then he's got a certain flight path that he or she needs to take to get there. And so as an entrepreneur, we're putting our lives on the line. Our lives, our livelihoods. And without a good plan, and the plan isn't even so much for us, and what it takes to start the business, but it does make us think through all the intricacies
Right.
of our businesses. We may not look at it every day, but we know what's in it because we wrote it. So it's not even good to necessarily have somebody else to pay somebody to write your business plan. That's okay. Why do they know more about your business than you do?
Right.
But so now you're going to go through, and again, these are things you're going to go through. You're going to put your budget together. Mm-hmm. You know what you can afford for rent. You know what you can afford for utilities. You know what you can afford for staff. You know what you can afford for supplies. So all those things. You know what it's going to cost. So you know what it costs, but then now you know how much revenue you need to bring in. Mm-hmm. So before, just because you got a big contract doesn't always mean you're going to make a whole lot of money, because you have all these things that you have to pay for. And if you don't know these numbers, then you don't know what you really need to charge.
Right.
And how often do you hear that people are saying, man, I'm getting all this business, but I'm not making any money? Mm-hmm. Well, means you're not charging. You're not charging enough, or B, you're paying too much out.
Right.
In your expenses. So something's got to change. Mm-hmm. The second thing, another thing it requires you to do is put together your marketing plan. Mm-hmm. So people, for some reason, feel like they don't have to do any marketing. Mm-hmm. Oh, I got the greatest. Everybody's going to want it just because it's me.
Right.
And I have the big family and mm-hmm. friends and everything, so they're going to be all over it. And man, everybody's going to tell. Well, I hate to tell you, but a lot of times your friends and your family, not intentionally, but they're some of the last ones that'll do business with you. Mm-hmm. And it's not that they don't want to. A lot of times they may not need to. And you haven't talked to them to find out what they need. Do they need your widget? Mm-hmm. Or are you just going to force them to buy it? Mm-hmm. Are they interested in the book that you're going to write? Or are you just going to force them to buy it because they're your friends? If you're forcing them to buy it, they're not going to tell their friends about it, because they're not even going to use it. So we have to understand what our marketing and advertising solutions and what that strategy is going to look like. A lot of times, again, people shortchange themselves on what they're going to spend in that area. Mm-hmm. But that's really how people find out that your mousetrap is better. Mm. You have a 4-year-old. He's recognized the golden arches at McDonald's since he was 2. Mm-hmm. They do a heck of a job of marketing the kids. And I mean, he may not be able to say some restaurants, but he can say McDonald's.
Mickey D's.
He can say it. So it's just important. I think, again, it's like with anything we do. If you don't think through it ahead of time, and you're not willing to sacrifice and learn about it and get educated about it, and then start putting stuff on paper and writing it down and understanding details, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Wow.
Not that all businesses will fail, mm-hmm. but the majority of businesses are going to fail anyway. And the ones without a plan, their plan is really to fail.
So kind of give us, in this first half before we move into the second half, what would be maybe the top 5 priority things the emerging entrepreneur, new small business owner needs to before the doors open? Mm-hmm.
That's a great question. So 5.
I think, or maybe if it's 3 or if it's 10, 15.
Okay. I'll say that the first one is to make sure that your concept, whether it's a widget, a service, or what have you, is something that's really needed. Okay. What's the market for it?
That's good.
And I don't mean what do your friends think about it. I mean broadly, is that something that's needed? Mm-hmm. Because just because you think it is doesn't mean that it is.
Right.
And just because your friends think that it is doesn't mean that it is. I've gone through people's business plans and just things that I'm like, yeah, it's not gonna work. And I'm brutally honest.
Right.
So this isn't gonna work.
Good.
Right.
Be honest,
yeah. I'm not. Because I already know you don't want to be in business and you going broke spending your savings. But so you do have to do some research to find out, is this needed, and if it is, am I offering it the way that people need it? Mm-hmm. What's the service behind it? And so that's step 1.
Okay. 2
is kind of a self-check. Am I going to be committed? Is this something I'm passionate about? Something I'm committed to making sure that I'm going to see it all the way through? Mm-hmm. Again, it's a sacrifice. There's going to be some parties you can't go to. There's going to be some trips you can't go on. Earlier today, I had one of my business partners in, and he was talking about how he normally takes his daughter on. He's a chaperone on a lot of her trips. Well, there was one that came up. He couldn't go. because he needed to be somewhere else. You just have to recognize that you have to make those sacrifices and you have to be somewhere else. If you're not going to be committed to that, then it's not time for you to start your business. The next thing is really understanding how much it's going to take to run that business. And here's the thing that I found is that once you find out how much it's going to take to run a business, you have to figure out how you're going to pay for it. Now, some people, if you've been stacking money up and putting money away and saving, you may have all you need financially to be in business for 2 years to give yourself a good shot at winning. But let's say you don't have those resources, and you're going to go out and you might get a line of credit on your house if you have one. But a lot of people will come to me and say, "Hey, I want you to invest in my business." Okay, how much do you have in it?
Right.
Well, I don't really have any money. For me, that's a red flag. If you don't have the money to invest in your business, then I'm certainly not going to put mine in, because I've been there before. I've seen that movie, and the end is not really a good ending.
Right.
And so I'm looking for people that are investing in themselves. But then the next thing is, how much of your company are you willing to sell? So don't come to me asking for my money and you want me to fund most of it and get 1% ownership in it. That's not going to work. I look at what's the equity, what's the total equity needed. I'm going to give you a little bit of value for your sweat equity, but I'm not going to give you a lot of value for it, because sweat equity versus my cash equity, I'm going to miss my cash. You're going to move on to your next thing. And so I'm going to want more equity if I'm the only one coming with cash. But again, I'm not doing any deals where I'm the only one bringing cash to the table. And if you're not putting cash in, and you don't have any skin in the deal, I'm not doing it.
Right.
And that's what you're seeing now with a lot of more sophisticated investors. And part of it is that we've paid that tuition that I talked about earlier. We've lost some money here and there, or we've signed on a loan and our business partner kind of skipped out. It just didn't work out. I'm like, dude, you only in here a month.
Right.
You ain't give it a chance. Well, I found something else. The Lord has led me to something else. Well, we need to talk. So, but in all sincerity, we have to really think about how much of our business we want to sell. And then we have to be realistic in our valuation of our company. It does mean a lot to you. I get it. But the fact that it means a lot to you doesn't mean it's worth a lot. And not when you start bringing money into the table. So I would say that those are kind of the top three. The fourth thing that I would say is make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right people. And you have to pay people. Yes.
Yes. Can't get everything for free.
It's not all.
Cannot get everything for free.
It's not all on the hookup. Some of your relationships will maybe yield you better discounts, but you should expect to pay people unless you expect to offer your service for free. Are you going to do yours for free?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so
it's not a business.
It's not a business, right? It's volunteer work.
Right.
It's kind of from my heart, I just want to make this available to everybody.
Right.
That's not a business. That's not how you run it. And so if you're not going to give your business away and do business for people for free, don't expect others to do the same, and pay them. And if you can't pay them right then, be honest, be straight up. Hey, I'm running a little short.
Right.
Give me about 90 days. I'm going to pay you, and make sure that they get paid before you get paid. Because again, they're doing business with you, trusting that you're going to do the right thing. And if you're not going to do the right thing, then you could leave them short, but they're invested in your business. I have one company that I work with on my development side, and I've paid them quite a bit of money for some projects. But I always tell them, I say, y'all are my real business partner, because you all will have literally expended money knowing that I'm raising money. But you trust me enough that you're comfortable and confident in me enough that you'll go ahead and expend those resources. But I'm going to pay you. Right. And I'm going to pay you as soon as it comes in, I'm getting it to you. But you all are my business partner because you do that. And because we have to keep these projects moving, and you recognize that you're doing what we need to keep the projects moving.
Right.
But again, I'm straight up with them. They know where I am or what I'm doing, and they know ahead of time, and so they get to make those decisions on their own.
Right.
Not thinking that I'm sitting on a pile of money, and as soon as they send me an invoice, I'm gonna pay it right away. So again, you have to be honest with your vendors and tell them, I have it, I don't have it, I'm gonna have it here, I'm gonna have it then. And some of them may say, okay, well, that's cool, call me when you have it. Don't be mad if that's what they say, because they know what their bills are. Their staff or anybody they use or contract with, they expect to get paid too. So just be honest with people when it comes to that. So I would say those are really kind of my 4 pillars, if you will, of being successful, especially in launching a company.
Right.
But really understanding your business, making sure you're going to be committed to it, making sure you have the right partners. And I would say the last thing, well, not the last thing, but when I talk about partners, even your friends, they can be partners. They can be partners in that, not so much that they're doing business with you or even working for your company, but the way they influence you. If, Markeith, I have a contract that I need to be working on tonight, don't invite me out.
This is true.
And don't be mad at me when I say I can't come.
Right.
Don't say, well, you can get to that later.
So the video cut off right when Lee was ending that last segment, and he was talking about making sure you had the right people surrounded around you. And so I'm going to let Lee finish that because the video did cut off. And you were saying just to make sure that...
Yeah, there are people that are positive, people that are encouraging you, and they're headed the same direction you're headed. You don't want people that are going to be negative, they're going to be detrimental to your business, that are going a different direction,
right,
because it just doesn't mix that well. And that's just, I think that, ultimately we have to just surround ourselves with individuals, and that's part of our team. That's part of our team. Think about the athletes and entertainers, even some business people that say, well, I got to keep it real. I got to keep it real. And then, there was for a period, there's a quote, when keeping it real goes wrong. Because a lot of times they kind of outgrew the people that they were hanging out with. They wanted to go back, and I get it. It's kind of like, I don't want to feel like I sold out or I left you behind. I get it. And you don't have to leave people behind. But if they're not willing to step up to where you are, then you got to bounce. So they have to make the change. Yeah. They have to be willing. They have to understand you have to get up for practice. You have to get up and open your company up in the morning. And if they're trying to keep you out or don't understand that, then that's not going to work for you.
Yeah, good. So just to highlight those tips that he gave you before you open your doors, before you get started, he said, identify the need for your service, for your product that you're offering. Then you got to make sure that you're committed to the business, meaning that there are going to be some late nights, meaning that you may have to have that conversation with your family about some sacrifices that may have to be made. Then how much money do you need to get started, or what is it that you actually need to get started up and going? Then he said, if you're looking for investors, looking for people to loan you money, then how much of the company are you willing to sell in order to get those finances? And then he said, be realistic about the valuation of your company if you're going to look for investors. We all love what we're doing. We all love the product or the service that we're providing, but you want to be honest with yourself about the valuation, and then surround yourself with the right people. I like a quote that my pastor said. He said, sometimes you can't take your old playmates to your new playground.
Ain't that right?
And so you got to make sure that you're surrounded around the right people. And so this is the first half of our interview, and we'll be right back in 30 seconds. At the end of the day, we all want to live successful and impactful lives. We all have dreams and aspirations that we truly want to achieve, but sometimes it's hard to get it done and to achieve those dreams and visions by ourselves. Sometimes you need to hire a coach or have a mentor. That's why I created the Inspire and Elevate Strategy Session. These strategy sessions allow you an opportunity to pull on my own personal expertise of being an individual who went from a 9-to-5 and started his own successful speaking and coaching business. If you have a desire to move to your next level, if you have a desire to take some steps toward creating the lifestyle that you've always wanted, book your strategy session today. Go to markeithbraden.com, click on the Work With Me tab, and listen to the video and look at the testimonials of the individuals that I've helped along the way. Your time is now. Your time is right now. Let's move you to your next level. Let's achieve the dreams and goals that you have by you booking your Inspire and Elevate strategy session. I know this is your opportunity. Now let's just move on it. Welcome back. We are here with Lee Molette of Molette Investment Services. I got it right this time. And Lee just gave us some advice on, some things that we need to think about before we get started in business, before we open up the doors. And there's some great advice. And those of you who will be taking notes, you can go back to that part of the video of the interview and write those things down as you are thinking about starting your business. I want to shift this half of the interview to wealth building and talk about how important it is to have a side hustle or a small business. I believe in multiple streams of income.
Yes, indeed.
I share all the time. I got to that point because of the book of Genesis, and the Garden of Eden had 4 rivers that fed the garden.
Right.
And so it is my motto that you need at least 4 streams. I've heard 7, I've heard 8.
Right.
But I take my direction just from that chapter in Genesis that talked about the 4 rivers that flowed into the Garden of Eden. And so let's talk a little bit about wealth building and how important it is to have those multiple streams.
Yeah, so wealth building, and it's interesting to me being in wealth management in the businesses that I'm in. I'm in primarily 2 businesses, so financial services, where I work with others, and then the real estate side. And both of those are the areas that really create more wealth than any other forms of investment that are out there. Even if you own a farm, you own real estate.
Right.
So, and I have conversations with people that come and, hey, I want you to help me put together a wealth plan. I want to talk about this. I want to talk about that. And it's all good because it sounds good. Building wealth, generational wealth. I want to leave something to my great grandkids and all those things. Sounds good. And it is good, and it is very important. And one of the things that I tell everybody is that when you look at how you're building wealth, you really want to look at the value that the way you're generating it. Does the value increase? So at the end of the day, can you sell it? Because you like we hear about people when they're exits. When they exit, I exited my company and I got $50 million.
Right.
Because they built the value of something and they sold it. YouTube did it. I mean, you can go through all these different entities that they sold what they built. They may never have made any money, but they built the value up. And so it became valuable to someone and they were able to sell it. And so I say that to say that anything that you're doing, it has to have some value to it. You have to be building value. It has to be something that you can sell. In my financial services, in this world, I can sell my book of business. It's got a value on it based on assets under management, based on the revenue stream. There's some factors that go into it. I get some multiple of that, and I can sell it to somebody. On the real estate side, I don't care, if it's a lot that I bought in West Nashville for $3,000-4,000 15 years ago, that may be worth a couple $100,000 now, or the first duplex that I bought the first piece of property I bought in Nashville, which is in the Bordeaux area, I bought from it was a foreclosure by Nations Credit. So that was before Nations Credit became Bank of America.
Okay,
I bought it for like $27,000. Had 2 tenants in there. And so I've never had to pay a note out of pocket for that one. And it's worth, quite a bit more than what I paid for it. And then contrast that to one of my good friends that bought a brand new car that cost the same thing at the same time. And we don't know where that car is, but these assets have grown. They've appreciated. And I can sell that if I ever need to. So the different ways, and I won't get into that strategically, there are different ways I can monetize those things. So when you think in terms of having different streams of income, we're going to have our quote unquote our day job. What's paying the bills, putting the bacon in the skillet, and making sure the kids have shoes on their feet. So we have that, and we have to take care of that.
Right.
And a lot of times people think, oh, well, I can kind of get by and I can go do this thing on the side. Well, no, you have to look at your job at XYZ Corporation as your business. Mm-hmm. They've hired you. They're contracting with you to provide a service.
Right.
If you're not providing that service, they can cancel the contract. Mm-hmm. So look at it as you're working for yourself. Don't look at it as you're working for the man or what have you. Because your clients, and your clients are going to tell you what they expect from you.
That's right.
They're your boss. They tell you and guess what? If you don't deliver, they cancel the contract. Mm-hmm. And so so when you're working for a company and that's your day job, take really good care of that day job. Make sure that your boss and everybody there really appreciates you, and they know that you appreciate being there and the opportunities that you have. So that's your main river. You don't cut off the main river.
Everybody needs that main river.
Everybody needs that main river. But then we do look at other streams, and for me, it's been real estate, rental income, and those types of things, and consulting. And for you, it could be something different. I mean, you've figured out a way to take your business and bring in multiple streams of income, whether you're coaching, whether it's your blog, or you're training, whatever it is, you figure out how to do it. Excuse me, to do it and turn in other income. And so so I think it's really important, because if your main job, for some reason, your main gig shuts down, then it's good to have some other streams of income.
That's right.
But here's the kind of the conundrum people find themselves in. A lot of people always say, I don't want to keep this XYZ Corp job for the rest of my life. But they have not made, kind of goes back to what we talked about earlier, they have not made plans or a strategy to exit. Because there's value in that job, but you haven't figured out how to exit it to get to.
So basically you're saying you don't just quit.
No.
Because I remember a former job I had, and one of my good friends, I was just fed up. I was just ready to go. Mm-hmm. But he kept telling me, he said, don't leave until you have at least a 90-day exit strategy.
Right.
And that 90-day exit strategy included at least having 90 days
before you leave.
Right. But also 90 days worth of hopefully expenses.
Yes.
So that you're not trying to figure out how you're going to pay your bills.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, they got me before I left.
You got there.
But, the great thing about it was that I had started working on that strategy, on that plan.
Right.
And, even though I got laid off, I never really missed a beat.
Right.
I never missed a mortgage. Mm-hmm. I was, even during that process, was able to pay off my car because I had started working on the plan, started working on the strategy, and then, of course, faith and all of that.
Yes.
Believing in myself and knowing that I could create income. But you don't just quit a job.
No. You don't just quit. You don't just wake up and quit.
Right.
And it's much easier to find a new job when you're already working.
Yeah.
And people appreciate when you say, if you have an interview, hey, you know what? I have to be at work. So I can meet before work, I can meet after work, I can meet at lunchtime. Right. We can figure this out. But let's not forget XYZ is paying me right now. Or I can take a vacation day. I mean, you have different ways to do it, but take care of it. Don't quit until you have something else set up. And so what people do is, unfortunately, they may even start creating some of these other streams of income, but they don't put those streams of income away. They don't allow that to work for them. Mm-hmm. It becomes part of their day to day. It's the one. It's how they'll take they'll start flying first class, or they'll start spending. They figure out a way to spend that money at the end of the day, and so they never really get to the point where they are able to either maximize those other streams if that's what they want to do, or really build them into something that's valuable. And so again, it sounds good to say that I want to do this, but if you don't have a strategy in place, then you never see the fruit or the real benefits of it. Because typically speaking, your day job should probably pay for all your living expenses, and your other streams should take care of this wealth building that you want to do. So you can, whether you take that wealth and invest it in the stock market, or you invest it in a business of some sort, or you buy real estate with it, that's how you generate those generational wealth, is you take those other streams and let them work for you. But if you just kind of put it all in the pie and say, "Ooh, we got a bigger pie, and we're going to still eat it all you do is get fat."
And that's, that was the approach that I took when I went into ministry in that transition period. One, I kind of knew what I wanted. I knew what the conversation needed to look like.
Right.
But at the same time, I understood that I wanted to, whatever I was making in the business, I could reinvest and be able to go to conferences, be able to do certain things to help me grow in business. Right. And so what I did was, the ministry right now, what I do at the Temple Church here in Nashville provides enough to pay the living so that I can completely take my money in the business and reinvest in myself and, like I said, get training and development in certain things. One of the reasons why I got into the whole streams was that, speaking wasn't coming as often enough. Right.
Now I know you're a great speaker. Right. And you just knew everybody was going to be hiring you.
Fill in the gaps. And so that's where coaching came in. Okay, well, I'm speaking. People are calling me about, well, how you get paid to speak? How did you start a podcast? How the need.
Right. The need.
And so I was like, okay, well, I can do some coaching in between speaking engagements. And then once I got into the whole technology piece and learning how to build an online-based business, I recently started a Amazon store. And so I know how to go buy products on sale and resell them on Amazon and make a profit. Right.
There you go. Right.
So there's just all types of things that you can do to be able to create those streams.
Right. And then just think in terms of the equipment that you've bought for your business and how it allows you to be portable. It allows you to,
location independent.
Independent, yes.
Time freedom and location independent.
Yes.
I'm going to read this quote real quick. I'm reading The Wealth Choice by Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. And he says, one of the interviews he did was with John Johnson, the late John Johnson of Ebony Magazine. And he said, John Johnson asked him, he said, "Why aren't you wealthy?" That was the question. And Dennis said he didn't really know how to answer that question. And he said, John Johnson said that millionaires among us are men and women of laser-like focus and concentration.
Yes.
Wealth creators who have hammered away at one place long enough to accomplish their purpose. Why is it important to focus in this culture of multitasking, in this culture of be everywhere? Why is it important when it comes to building wealth to focus on a thing until it's? I think that if you're not focused on it, you never really get good at it. You don't get excellent at it, and your business is at its best value when you're excellent. That's when people notice you. Right. People want to do business with you. People want to buy your business when you're excellent, and until you get there, then it's difficult for people to really see you in that light, if you will. But to your point, a lot of people have. We all have all these things in our head, and again, I had to really pray and meditate one day, or over some time, not just a day, but over some time, and say, you know what, the types of businesses that I've invested in that have been successful have been this type. That's good. So I need to focus on that. Right. I know that.
I don't know tech. I don't know the restaurant business. I don't know the bar business. Just so many different. A lot of things I don't really know. And so with those, of course you can. A lot of times people say, I bet on the jockey, not the horse. So with those, if I'm investing in your business, I don't really want to see you doing 10 different things.
That's good.
I want to see you focused on that one thing.
Yeah.
But I just think that's how you get excellent, and people demand excellence when they're spending their money. And so I think that has a lot to do with it. John H. Johnson. They did publishing. So that's all they did.
That's all they did.
They did it well.
That's good. That's good. You talked about your father in the last segment, and there was another quote that I was reminded of when you talked about your father, and it said, "Wealth is less a matter of circumstance than it is a matter of knowledge and choice."
That's very true. We all have met and know people that start off with less than nothing, and through the choices that they've made, the work ethic they've had, they've been able to turn that into to some phenomenal, have some phenomenal outcomes. And my grandfather, when he started, he didn't come from a poor family or anything like that, but he didn't come from a family that could seed his vision. They couldn't seed his pool hall. He had to seed that himself, but he was willing to put the work into it to get there and make the sacrifices to get there. I think, Marquis, at the end of the day, the people that aren't really successful in business or building wealth or whatever it is that they want to do, and 9.9 times out of 10, they're not willing to make the sacrifices to get there.
That's it.
That's
funny you say that, because I was just reading another quote by another interview he did, and it was with, she started that major HR out in California. What was that lady's name? It's here. I'm looking for it real quick. Janice Bryant Howard. And she said, if in the end, if you take care of business, your business will take care of you.
And that's a fact. That's a fact. For my company to be 23 years old, I guess we are now. It's been through a lot of work and putting the time in and being in the office late and all those things, and taking care of my clients, because my clients are the ones that send me new business.
Right.
Or my reputation is what brings me new business. Our industry is so heavily regulated, you don't see a lot of wealth advisors doing a lot of advertising. May sponsor some stuff here and there, but we don't really do a lot of advertising because the industry regulations are so high. But if you have a good reputation, then people are going to want to do business with you, and they're going to check your reputation. They're going to call around, and then with technology now, they can Google and do all kind of things. I had a guy at the gym that I work out at. And, we talk from time to time and in the locker room or whatever. He stopped me one day. He said, "Don't you manage money?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Yep." He said, "I've been talking to this other company. I have some money I need to move at this company for a long time. So, it's a substantial amount, and I need to move it. And I want to do it with you." He said, "You have a great reputation. This is what you do. You've been doing it a long time. You're an expert at it. Obviously not on the front page, run off people's money or anything like that." And literally, I didn't have to make a pitch. And I thought I did, but he said, no, we're good. I'm doing this with you. I just need you to advise me on what I need to be doing. But that's reputation.
That's good, and that is, where my business is moving towards, especially with small business owners and entrepreneurs, because what you're talking about is the whole idea of personal brand. You're talking about people doing business with people, and he had the ability or the opportunity to receive referral or information about you from other people. I'm sure he's seen things that you've done in the community. And that speaks to who you are. He was able to know that you were in financial services because of your brand, right? And how you didn't have to pitch, you didn't have to send them any marketing materials. Your name was what came first to mind for him. You know, and I want to help other small business owners. How do you become first of mind or top of mind?
Top of mind, right.
You know, you got to develop that personal brand through serving your customers, your clients in an excellent way, so that when somebody needs what you have, they think of you first.
Right.
And so in this segment, we were talking about wealth. And so, Lee, I just want you to end our interview with encouraging words for the new entrepreneur, for the small business owner who's saying, hey, it's rough. I really want to give up, go back to doing what I was doing, you know,
air-conditioned office.
do I just, you know, do I stay the course, you know, reevaluate and keep going?
Yeah. What I would say to you, new entrepreneur, welcome to our world. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. It's truly a journey. It's a journey of ups and downs. This journey has to survive any of your personal stuff. Your personal ups, your personal downs, your kind of mid-level personal stuff, whatever you have this journey has to survive that. And it can't survive it if you're not going to really be committed to it. Right. And so we've talked about commitment. We've talked about sacrifices. The money that it takes to run a business, it's going to be important. But if you're not committed and you're not really willing to make the sacrifices, you're going to burn through any money that you have, your investor money, your own money, or what have you. I from time to time, I advise, when people come to me and ask me, should I go into business? Should I not go into business? From a conversation, I can typically tell whether they should or shouldn't. And if they shouldn't, I'll tell them that, and I'll tell them why. And I said, now you can right this ship, but right now, you need to keep on doing what you're doing. And so much of that, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, is true. It's transferable to the wealth building side. Again, if you're not willing to take 10% of your paycheck, every paycheck, and put in your 401k, not willing to take another 10% of what you take home, and by the time I get through with this, you're gonna be working with 70% of your income. Because on the top side, you tithe off your gross. Then you have, obviously you have taxes and all that stuff, but then you have to put money into your 401k plan. And then you need to take money and put it into your own investment portfolio. That's how you build your investment portfolio. But you got to take the money out to do it. And so that's sacrifice. That means you got to cut out some things. That may be some movies you don't go to, some dinners you don't do, maybe some clothes you don't get to buy your kids. May mean that you don't send them to private school, or just so many different things. You might have to clip coupons. But I tell you that there is a way. And I say that I have a client, I'll finish with this. I have a client, she's never made more than $40,000 a year. Single mother, 2 boys. I met her at my son's football, the football team he played for. And she asked me one day, she said, what do you do? And I told her. She said, oh, okay, one day I'm going to have somebody like you. I said, well, what's holding you back? Right. She said, well, I don't make enough money. I said, well, how much money do you need to have? What does it cost to work with somebody like me? Well, I don't know, but I know it takes a lot. And I said, well, what is it you want to do? She said, I want to be able to help my kids, my boys, pay for college. I want to buy a house, and I want to get out of debt. And at some point, I want to buy a new car. And I said, okay, let's set up a time to meet. So we met, went through how much she made, what her bills were, and everything. $40,000 a year, raising 2 boys with no child support. And one thing she hadn't done is she hadn't bought a new car. That car was rolling. But we put together a plan. She had about $17,000 in debt. She had her car. She made about no less than $40,000 a year. So she had rent. She wasn't getting Section 8 or anything like that. So she was living. Put together a plan. She followed the plan. She put up what she needed to put up for herself. She put up, because she wanted to buy a house. Well, you got to have money to put down a house. She put the money up for her kids, her boys go to school, and then eventually she bought a car. So she bought a house, she bought a new car, and then when her oldest son got ready for college, she called me. I remember this like it was yesterday. She called me, hey, I need to take some money out for my son's college. I said, okay, well, how much you need? And she told me. I said, okay. And she started crying a little bit. And I said, well, what's wrong? She said, well, this is what they told me I need after financial aid. And I said, well, what are you crying about? She said, I have it. I have the money. I have saved this money. She saved up almost $30,000 for each one of her sons over that course of that period of time.
On
$40,000 a year. So
plan and discipline. And she worked it. And by and large, my clients that do that, they're going to get where they're trying to go. But they take the time to put together the plan, and they make the sacrifices, and they're committed to making it happen. And if you're willing to do that, then you too will build whether it's your business or your generational wealth that you want to build, you'll be able to do it. Wow. $40,000. She followed the plan. Lee, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks for being on the interview. You can reach out and learn more about Molette Investment Services at MoletteInvestmentServices.com. MoletteInvestmentServices.com. All right. Y'all have a good one.
All right. Thank you all.
Thanks for listening to the Markeith Braden podcast at markeithbraden.com. If you've not subscribed to the podcast via iTunes, subscribe today and be sure to leave Markeith a rating and review of today's episode. Just remember this: always shoot for the top, because it's the bottom that's overcrowded.